So meditation, sitting still and quietly and just letting things settle. You know, they liken it to muddy water, just settling, so the silt slowly settles, and it does just take time. So you just have to be patient. But Tai Chi is a Daoist art, and Taoism is all about balance and equilibrium. So it's never about one thing, it's always about the balance between more than one thing. And when you're sitting, you want a sense of concentration, but without too much intent focus. So, mind in dantien. So just having this place here as the center of your body, rather than this place here, which is where we normally are, which is where the mind becomes apparent with its noise. So how do we get here? Now, it's a lot easier to get here when you're sitting than it is when you're standing and moving around. But we want to make this not just like a conceptual center, not just an abstract place inside my body, but as something that's real, something that has some sort of visceral muscularity to it, yeah? And we do that by linking it with the breathing, with the breath. And particularly with the reverse breathing, which is this mysterious thing in Tai Chi. And basically what it is just trying to turn this into like a real gravitational center. Yeah? So if you think of the gravitational center of an object is actually tugging at every part of that object and holding that object together. So there's a sense that it's an anchor. This is the dantien is like an anchor. So we just need to give it that sort of pulling ability, that ability to just tug at everything that's in its vicinity. Yeah. And so we do that by training the in-breath to not just suck air in to the lungs, but as it to be a muscular contraction, not just of the diaphragm, but of the belly pulling energy into it. Yeah. So we do that by just making the small hole. So just a small hole in the mouth, so that when you breathe in and you breathe in through that hole, it's difficult to pull the air in because it's so small. So as I suck the air in, everything has to tighten around here. I don't have enough strength in my diaphragm to actually do the job. So I bring in all of these muscles. So the belly tightens. That's really when we really feel the dantien. Yeah. The belly tightens, the anus tightens, everything here is pulling up. So the urogenital diaphragm, the diaphragm that's down here, pulls upwards, and the breathing diaphragm pulls downwards. So everything is trying to pull towards the dantien. And so just the small hole, so just breathing in and then out. So as I breathe in, there's a sense of something clenching inside me. Just suck that air in, and then something inside me relaxes and just squeezes it out. So in and out. In, out. So this is the tensile forces as I breathe in. And this is me compressing, me pushing something in order to get the air out. So here I'm sucking in and pushing out. So this is the yielding phase, drawing in. And this is the attacking phase, pushing out, yeah. So breathing in and out. Breathing in, out. Breathing in, out. Breathing in, out. So just try and really get the spine whipping back and forth. So the spine is breathing as well. So breathing in, breathing out. Yeah, so you just have to stay with it. So allow the doing, the practice to generate interest. So don't get bored. Don't let the mind wander. That's the big sin, really. And then just see what it's done. You know, what has the exercise done? How has it warmed up the body? How has it made your body? So there should just be a sense that this is like a natural center. This is a place of rest. And it's like it's surrounded by like an onion, sort of surrounded by these concentric rings. Yeah, so we tend to concentrate on the in-breath when we're reverse breathing. So, you know, like in yoga and other things, they talk about concentrating on the out-breath, you know, making sure that you breathe out completely. And so here we're concentrating on the in-breath, but both phases would be when you're pulling the belly in, you know. So in yoga, you pull the belly in to squeeze all the air out, and then you just relax that and the air will rush in. So for us, we concentrate on pulling the belly in as we breathe in, and then it really builds up that internal pressure. And then I just let that pressure go. and the air will come out. Yeah. So that's more useful for fighting. It's what you'd naturally do if you were sort of fighting. You know, there's almost a sense of sort of holding your breath to build up the pressure and then releasing it when you attack. Yeah, so there needs to be an element of work to bringing the mind under control. I mean, if you just wait and settle, it will, but it will take time, yeah? And it will often take, you know, for me, it's about an hour. And that's why I always think of an hour as being like a natural measure, because it's the time it takes for the mind to become quiet when you're sitting. Yeah? So if you don't have that long, then you need to do something. And the difficulty is that when we do something, we make it worse. Yeah, we introduce a disturbance. Yeah, and so when we do something, we have to just make sure it's really clear and very disciplined, and we don't allow the ego to interpose and make it the way it wants. Yeah. So you're following instruction. It's disciplined. You know, you're following orders. You're not doing what you want. Yeah. So there has to be that element to the work. Otherwise, it's just a bit drifty and it doesn't really gather. So, you know, the art that we're studying is Taoist. So we are Taoists, hopefully. So Taoism is just all about yin and yang, really, just balancing the yin and the yang. So everything has a double aspect, has a dual aspect. And they need to be unified. They need to be brought together and made to sort of just play together. And then that produces the one. So the one is always an equilibrium of at least two. So we've got this image now of the dantien being the center. The dantien is like the anchor, the dense center whose gravitational pull is holding the being together, the being being me. And now we just need a complementary conceptual vision of the being that can balance that. And that for me is the connective tissue, the fascia. Yeah. So the dantien being, you know, that sort of strong center, that is taking over from the normal way of being, which is having the mind, the thinking mind as the center, the ego, the self. Yeah. So we want to break that. That's the most important thing, really. Just break the hegemony of the ego and just replace it with something that has just more vitality and more use in daily interactions. Yeah, especially spirit interactions that require spirit. Yeah, this won't help you because it's slow if you need spirit. I mean, yesterday, there's a little black cat that's befriended me. And so whenever I approach, I don't know if it recognizes my footsteps, but it always comes running. So it came running and it's meow, you know, it's sort of a kitten really. And then my neighbor downstairs, he's got this massive husky dog that's, you know, he's Russian. So I don't know if he got it from Russia. I've never seen any huskies like it. But it's just big and fierce. And so that came downstairs, saw the cat and just went for the cat. Now this cat that had been going, meow, 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 wanting me to sort of stroke it and pick it up, suddenly just wheeled around, lifted its arms up, just swiped at this dog's nose and then just flew up a tree. Yeah. So that was spirit. And so if its mind had interposed, it would have hesitated and it would have been dead. And so what was that spirit? What was it that made the cat just become something else? Yeah, so for an instant, when the dog went on his walk, the cat came down from the tree and was a little bit sort of shaken, and its tail was big or fat, and then slowly it just went back and just became the cat it was before. It took about, just not long, about half a minute. But the cat is alive in such a way that it can become possessed by spirit instantly. Yeah. So from being this pathetic cat just wanting attention, this incredibly domesticated creature, suddenly it just took on its wildness and just was able to save its own life. And where did that spirit come from? Is that spirit part of the cat, or did it come into the cat when it was required? This is the thing, is it your spirit that actually saves your life, or is it your guardian angel? So where's it coming from? This is really interesting. So there's this sense that the spirit is impersonal. It's not part of you in a sense. So this replacing mind, or the thinking mind, the head mind, with belly mind, with body mind. So here, centered here. So that's the most important thing, really. And from that, the other things will come. They may take time, but they'll come. Okay, so this other way of seeing myself. So instead of seeing myself as an ego that's based here, that's thinking about things and judging things and calculating things, and I'm now at something that's down here, and this is now just observing, bright and empty, functioning naturally. The mind does not exert itself. It is not a place of thinking, difficult for reason and emotion to fathom. And so bright and empty, functioning naturally. The mind is just there, it's just receiving. I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, and it's just all coming in, and there's just a real sense that I want to feel that it's funneling down here. It's all being channeled into this center rather than into this center. So I'm feeling it, gut feelings. I'm feeling the world with my gut. So my senses are feeding directly into my gut. So they call this the second brain. There's more nerve endings apparently in the gut than there are in the head. Okay, so now I want another way of being in the world. And that's, for me, is the fascia, the connective tissue. And so the body is just this mass of fascia, of connective tissue. So all the way through my body, there's this like a web or a net. They call it the fascial net or the fascial web. And it's everywhere. Every object in my body, every sort of organ, every vein, every bone, they're all sheathed in fascia. And there's fascial sheets and threads running everywhere. So all of my organs are suspended inside me by fascia, otherwise they'd just all flop down and all be down here. And the fascia is just juicy, it's stretchy, it's elastic, and it's wet because the fascia helps things slide over each other so they don't get stuck and then start growing into each other. So they remain separate but together in the same space. And this net is just inside. And so what you can think of yourself as being a skeleton, a series of connected bones clad in flesh and skin. But that's not quite accurate. We're much more this web of really strong but resilient fascia within which all the objects in my body, all the bones and all the organs are suspended. So none of them actually touch quite, yeah? Even if they seem to be touching, there's a film of liquid between them that enables them to slip and slide. So what I want is for that image of myself to really possess me. And so I want to feel myself as this fascial web within which things are suspended. So that in a way, you know, we've got one fact of my being, what one sort of way of feeling myself in the world is out this gravitational center here that's keep giving me coherence, that's giving me integrity, but then also feeling myself as this pervasive web of connectivity. Every point can be reached by any other point in the web because it's all connected, within which there are these things that are floating. So this sense of suspension, which is really important in Tai Chi, otherwise everything becomes too compressed. We're always looking for the tensile, for the forces that are elastic and that pull. Yeah, so that the fascia is tensile. It's subjected to tensile forces all the time, and it's under tensile tension, yeah. Tensile stress, yeah. So if I can just, as I slip into my meditation, there's a sense that I'm feeling this is where I am, if you like, yeah. This is where it all happens. But I know a bit, I can just switch my mind, and I'm this web, I'm this structure, this really elaborate scaffolding, if you like, this sort of structure within which everything is suspended. So you have to be able to see yourself two ways, two really complementary, two ways that are so different. They almost don't belong in the same space, yeah? And this is the problem, you know, when you're with one, the other one completely disappears, but we need this double mind, almost schizophrenic, but a mind that's also very much aware of each other. Yeah? So just and then there's always the sense that you're sort of slipping. And this is the element of freedom. You know, you're sort of slipping between these different realities or these different models of reality. So the dantien model and the fascial model. So the dantien model would tend to be very still because it's just coming back to this. And the fascial model, it's all elastic. Everything is sort of stretchy and moving. So the craniosacral rhythm is the same as the fascial rhythm, really. And what's interesting about it is that the movement within that fascial web should be random. You know, if there's any parts of it which are frozen, where there doesn't seem to be any movement, then it's a sign of pathology. But also, if there's any part of it that's irregular, that's too regular, it's also a sign of pathology. So there's this sense of like random just shifts and movements and slippages. You know, they call it creep, the creep within the fascia, of the fascia. Yeah? And so that's really moving. So we want to be able to just slip into that mind, you know, that sort of, it's the craniosacral rhythm, really. If you can just get into it, just feel that, and just feel that slow, seepy movement, yeah. And so, you know, it's a little bit like when you're tipsy, yeah, and yeah. So we block it most of the time, you know, we just block it out. The reason people don't feel these things is because they have willingly blocked them out. They've been really violent, yeah? And so it's not because people are insensitive, yeah? It's because they don't realize it, but in order to institute their own world, they've had to completely flatten reality, really. So the breathing, in yoga, they call the breath the bridge between the mind and the body. But it's also like the bridge between your two models, your dantien model and your fascial model. Yeah. So when you breathe in, you can be coming into the dantien, so feeling that strongly. And then as you breathe out, you can be slipping into this sort of relaxed but moving fascia. Yeah. So when I talk about libido or the erotic, I'm just talking about the fascia, really, or the movement of the fascia. Yeah. And it tends to dry up as we get older. It tends to become less elastic. And so we just need to work some part of our practice that is just trying to, just introduce a bit of juice and just a bit of elasticity. Yeah. It's just so important. And so viscous flows, they talk about the fascia having viscoelasticity. So elastic means that when it's pulled and you release that tension, it will just go back to its original shape. And viscous just means there's a resistance. There's a resistance to flow. But in a sense, that inertia to flow produces momentum. When it actually starts flowing, there's an inexorable quality to it. There's a sense of real momentum to that flow. So you can feel it as it flows. It feels like a sort of snake that's just snaking its way around your body, but slowly. And something has to happen to let it through. There's places where it can't go through, so you just have to move a little bit to let it through. So just opening the channels, really, the channels to this viscous flow within the fascia. And that's really important because that's basically, the flow from the ground up through the body into the hand. That's first and foremost in the fascia. So we just need a practice that cleans those channels, that just makes them useful, really. And together, those two models, so the dantien model and the fascial model, together, they allow and encourage spirit. It's like you need the yin and the yang to come together in order for spirit to become a possibility. If you just have one, then okay, you may have that one and it can be really strong, but the spirit won't be in evidence. Yeah. So it's almost like when these two things come together, it's almost like a combustion, a spark, and that's the spirit. Yeah. And so having this strong gravitational center that's like surrounded by this filigree, delicate but strong, fascia is incredibly strong. structure, you just become really capable, yeah? And spirit can just manifest, and suddenly you're in action. This is what we want. We want the things that come out of us, the way we behave, the way we respond to the world, to be spontaneous, to be something that takes us by surprise as much as it does anyone else. Yeah, like an artist. You know, an artist wants what he creates to excite him more than anyone. You know, they're not thinking about who's going to look at this stuff when they're painting or when they're writing. Yeah, it's just, oh, can it make me just feel more alive as I do it and as I look at it when it's finished? Yeah. So the fascial web, without the dantien, it would just sort of float, it would just take off and just sort of eventually just sort of disperse. And this, without that fascial web, would just never move. It would just stay here, just become settled like a lump of metal. Yeah? So you need them both. And then spirit can just dance around and just leap in and leap out. And yeah, so this has got an association of heaviness, gravity, and this has an association of lightness, levity, but also like a cheerfulness, like an optimism. Yeah. Yeah, so spirit is always trying to come in. Like Castaneda says, you know, we're being battered by spirit all the time. It's saying to us, wake up, let me in, yeah? And we just push it out and say no. And that's depression. Depression is saying no to spirit, saying no to the heart and letting the head override it, yeah? And so that your fascial body, it has that sort of lightness, ooh, hopeful, yeah?